Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call our annual United States Trotting Association Directors Meeting to order. I want to welcome all of you here today, and I want to take a special moment to welcome everyone taking part of their Sunday out to watch our organization in action on streaming video. So for those of you out there, welcome. And hopefully we can put together some interesting presentations for you today. We will first start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Sally Stauffer will lead us in that. Everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I think I've been up here a little too long already, so I'm going to take the next moment to turn the microphone over to Phil Langley, President of the United States Trotting Association, to introduce our keynote speaker.
For those of you who remember when Corwin was president, which seemed like only yesterday, but he's been gone now over 12 years. And he always used to have somebody from Ohio, either from the legislature or from government or something, welcome us. And I think that today we're having a keynote speech from a man who has done as much or more in Ohio than anyone has done in many years. Bob Schmitz, he's the chairman of the Ohio State Racing Commission. He's owned and bred harness horses. He's lobbied for the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association in getting slots legislation for Ohio. And I think probably if the horsemen were the only ones voting in Ohio, he could be governor. Huh. But he is everybody I talk to from Ohio credits Bob with almost all of the things that have been done lately. And I want to also say that besides in Ohio, he's been a stalwart in supporting USTA and harness racing in our battle with RMTC and RCI on medication. He has firmly stated that if harness racing isn't taken into consideration, the laws will not change in Ohio. And plus, I was at an RCI meeting in Tucson, and I was sitting next to the chairman of the committee, and Bob was on the telephone, and the chairman went on and on. He was berating us for this and that, and we were trying to make a little bit of ground. And finally, Bob spoke up on the phone. He says, "May I have a word or two?" And dead silence from the chairman while his mind revolved as to whether he should say yes or if he could say no. But he finally said yes, and Bob got in a few words. But anyway, it's with great pride that I introduce Bob Schmitz as our keynote speaker.
With that, I might want to run for president. Anybody for me? There we go. You better be. Have you ever heard about short books or short lists in the, people talk about, this is the shortest list or the shortest book or whatever. I'm on a very short list, being a harness horseman who also happens to be chairman of a state racing commission that has a lot of harness racing. There aren't many of us, so this is a rare breed here. I'm going to talk about all these things here on this list. When I talk, I look around the crowd and I formulate in my mind what I'm going to say. Let's talk about the future of racing, not only in Ohio but in the United States. We've been very, very fortunate here in Ohio. We have a governor, John Kasich, who was elected in 2010, that was interested in the agricultural aspects of horse racing, interested in what goes on in the counties in Ohio, saw the need or the opportunity, I guess the opportunity is better, to help education in Ohio and also to help the horse industry at the same time. And through our state lottery, we came up with, the governor and our friends in the legislature came up with the idea of video lottery terminals. Our video lottery terminals, I tell people they're not slot machines. They look like them, they smell like them, they play like them, but they are video lottery terminals. Slot machines are at the casinos, 4 casinos we have here in Ohio. And the lion's share of the monies that from that is divided in several different ways, with much of it going to support education here in Ohio. The horsemen have a slice of the butter, and obviously the racetracks that house these video lottery terminals have a significant slice of the butter also. And you talk about Corwin Nixon. Corwin Nixon was a great user of the term slicing the butter. He'd say, I'm the one slicing the butter around here, but anyway. How did we get where we are in Ohio? Boy, it was a long, long, long road. We talked about machines for 20 years at least. We had a governor before John Kasich who was interested in it, but just didn't quite have the chutzpah to get it over the goal line. We're very unique in Ohio. There are a few states. Illinois has and Pennsylvania have county fair racing, but in Ohio we have 65 county fairs that have harness racing. And each one of those counties, at their fairgrounds, folks train and race horses. It uses a base to race our raceways, and every year they have 3 or 4 days of harness racing. The grassroots of Ohio, when it comes to harness horse racing, is just unbelievable. It's unparalleled in any other state in the union. And much of our success has been because of the agricultural aspects of racing. Our breeding, obviously feeding grain, all the ancillary things that go along with that. We have just opened up a brand new racetrack in Ohio, Miami Valley, which is just north of Lebanon, Ohio. It's in Monroe, Ohio, right off of major interstate highway. There are a number of issues that yet to be resolved at that raceway. We've got some problems with heat in the paddock and not enough pari-mutuel clerks and this and that and the other thing, but it seems to be going very well. The racetrack is set up greatly. What are those guys' names? Kathy, the Coons brothers. Yeah, we know about them. Set the track up. Now, how do we get people to the racetrack? The age-old question. How do we get them there? I happened to be at Midland Acres yesterday. I just bought into I'm really not very smart, but I'm in the horse business. Bought into a mare with our friends at Midland Acres, and there was a third-generation Mossbarger there. His name is Jake. He's Jay's son. And there was a young lady in the office, and we were talking. Do your friends go to the racetrack? Well, yeah, we get them. We try to get them there. But Jay made a very, very keen observation. The question is, once you get them there, how are you going to get them to come back? And that's a challenge that faces all of us. We in Ohio, we Dean Hoffman has helped us when he's not pontificating as a professor out in Arizona. He's a smart guy, spent the winter in Arizona. With our Facebook pages for Ohio Sire Stakes, and also does work for our thoroughbred brethren too. How do we get interest in people coming to the races? And I know on your program, you're going to be addressing that with your social media and the like. That's very important. But it was said to me by a number of people that have been down this path with slot machines, video lottery terminals, or whatever you want to call them. They say, well, your problems have just begun. You have legislators and folks that see a pot full of dough and they say, well, boy, what are we giving those guys all that money for? Why don't we take a little bit of this for this and that and the other thing? Our friends in Ontario, their program, it's not in shambles, but they had to do a major reshuffling of what they do up there. Again, that all gets back to the political base. Those of us that are in harness racing in states that have these types of revenue enhancements have to be aware of what goes on in their local areas. Folks have to become involved. Most people are generally not interested in politics, particularly in the horse business, unless it affects their pocketbook, and then everybody gets involved in politics. So my suggestion and advice is for everybody who is in a state that has harness racing, become familiar with the people that are running your state. Folks in the agricultural department, the folks in the whomever your governor is, or members, more in particular, the folks in the state legislature. Again, here in Ohio, and I think I said this last year in Florida, 2 of your Ohio directors are in very influential positions in the state, which helps us a lot. Dick Brandt is chairman of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, which is a statewide trade association that looks after the interest of business in this state. He's the third generation of his family to be serving that position. John Mossbarger is on as a board member of the Ohio Farm Bureau. You have to get involved with different organizations, and you have to interact with those folks to let them know what things are about. Next thing I want to talk about is the RMTC rules, how we address that here in Ohio. We have taken a look at them, and obviously with Ohio being a major harness racing state, my constituency, excuse me, not my constituency, the constituency that we represent is slanted towards harness racing because of the proliferation of harness racing in Ohio. I've had talks with Ed Martin from the RCI and other folks. I don't think we're going to move forward in Ohio until there's some recognition of the difference between a standardbred horse and a thoroughbred horse when it comes on the frequency of racing. And some of these therapeutic medicines that drugs that we use to keep our horses, well, not exactly gone, but to keep them healthy. I pledged to both groups that I'm kind of in a unique position. I'm a harness horseman, as I said before, and I'm also a regulator. And I would like to work with and have with the United States Trotting Association and the RMTC and the RCI to come up with something that is of substance and uniformity for the harness horse, because we are different. Of course, there's not many of us as there are of the thoroughbred people. But as time goes on, we need to have that type of regulation. but it has to be something that we can support and they can support. So I'm looking forward to working with folks on that. Last topic I want to discuss, am I out of time yet?
Pardon?
Well, I got 3.5 minutes yet. Does the red light come on?
Oh, no, come on.
Oh, it'll come on, all right.
Doesn't come on for you.
Oh, it didn't come on.
We might pull you down.
Well, that's all right. That won't be the first time. I'm going to talk about the New York Times. How many of y'all read the New York Times every day? I knew you did, Alan. There's several of us. Why do I read the New York Times every day in Ohio? Because I want to know what the other side's thinking. I don't necessarily agree with what they do. They have gone off base and on a crusade against thoroughbred horse racing and also quarter horse racing. As you know, about a year ago, they ran a series about deaths on the racetrack and terrible pictures of horses being picked up with front loaders and dumped at the end of a shed row or some other nasty place. Most recently, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to take a look at the Times this week. They're talking about some of the top people in the sport that, in the thoroughbred racing sport, that have used electrical devices, buzzers or whatever. And PETA had a 7 or 8 minute video of some highlights of the parade of horribles that they had seen on the backside of at a thoroughbred track. Just inhumane things and guys making jokes, so on and so forth. Some of the top names in thoroughbred racing they got on tape, so on and so forth. I learned a long time ago in politics, it's difficult for you to catch up with the first story. People will read the first story, and that's generally that's their baseline knowledge, whether they read it all or not, but they see there's something wrong with horse racing in the United States. And that's a tough road to hoe, because you can come out and say, no, we didn't do this guy didn't do this, we're all great guys, so on and so forth. Harness racing, I don't think is any different. I think harness racing has some rogues in it, obviously. Our friend Mr. Grau over in Meadowlands doesn't let certain folks on his track. I read last night in Harness Racing Update that one of the top drivers in the country has been not welcome over at, I think it's, was it Harris or Pocono, over at Pocono. Guys trying to figure out, well, notice I don't mention any names. That's for you to find out. But anyway, things like that, it just keeps multiplying. There's a hell of a lot of mysteries and things that people don't understand, which is a segue into what we've been doing here in Ohio as it applies to enforcement of the rules that we have. One of the popularity contests that I entered into at the paddock at Delaware, the week of the Little Brown Jug, I didn't win. I wasn't a very popular guy amongst the folks, the officials of Delaware, and particularly the driving colony. I said to our stewards there, and for the stewards at our raceways, let's enforce the rules. Let's don't turn a blind eye. One of my bugaboos is kicking horses. Well, we don't kick horses. We just take our foot out of the stirrup and just kind of lightly brush their hocks. It doesn't hurt them. And I say to myself, well, unless all 8 or 9 guys in the race are doing it, then you have an advantage. And with that advantage, they don't put in a program, like they do for Lasix or whatever. They don't put a K next to driver's name for a kicker or a brusher of the hocks or whatever. Couple of the major races in this country, I was appalled at the Tattersall's pace this past October at Lexington. I watched it over and over and over again. I said, how in the world can somebody driving quality stock, again, I don't mention any names, why do they have to do that? It's not the right thing to do. In Ohio, we have increased the penalties and will continue to increase the penalties until it comes to a, I saw a raceway person just roll their eyes. Wonder who that was. Anyway, we're going to eliminate that. We're also watching very, very closely for whipping. And whipping has been it's been a topic of conversations both nationally and internationally in harness racing for a long time. In those same races major races, I would see guys whipping underneath the arch of the bike, you know, hitting them on the stifles and the like. We will not permit that type of activity in this state. We also are not too keen on guys that drive. You know, I can remember guys like Joe O'Brien. I never saw Joe was pretty straight up on a bike. Some guys like to lie back. I don't know what that does for a horse. I mentioned to one of them that had won a major race at Delaware. I said, hell, I could have driven that filly. I mean, she was far and the best, but said, boy, you know, we put on a good show, though, don't we? We are there to put on a good show, but these types of violations of rules have to be enforced. There were also some incidences in the Breeders' Cup Crown. Oh my God, I almost said cup. Shoot me. In the Breeders' Crown, where there was some kicking of some of the top horses in the country. So, and I see at your committee meeting that you're going to have here in a few minutes, that is on the agenda. Now, I'm probably out of time now, but if anybody wants to ask me a question, have at it. I'll take a couple questions. Well, that's what I thought. I'm an inspirational speaker. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for those comments, and they're just afraid of you. That's why there's no questions. Thank you again very much. Getting a perspective from a state legislature and commissioner for an organization that this is such a shot in the arm for is terrific, and I applaud what you've accomplished for harness racing and what I believe for Ohio from the passage of these laws in recent times. We'll now move forward to our roll call. Sally, please take the roll.
Mr. Antonacci?
Here.
Mr. Ader?
Here.
Mr. Beagle?
Here.
Mr. Bianconi? Mr. Biddle?
Here.
Mr. Bays? Mr. Brandt?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Here.
Mrs. Brewer-Bertera?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Mrs. Cahill?
Here.
Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Mr. Cross? Mr. Dedoyan? Mr. Ducharme? Mr. Dunn? Mr. Feraldo? Mr. Fontaine? Mr. Ford? Mr. Galterio? Mr. Gregory? Mr. Haas? Mr. Hubler? Mrs. Ingracia? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Kane? Mr. Kenny? Mr. Kimmelman? Mr. Landis? Mr. Levitt? Mr. Lilly? Mr. Mack? Mr. McKinnon? Mr. Marine? Mr. Marshall? Mr. McCoy? Mr. Mackerline? Dr. Moffitt? Dr. Mossbarger? Mr. Nichols? Mr. Olford? Dr. Powers? Mr. Reynolds? Mr. Rowland? Mr. Rooney? Mr. Schick? Mr. Schnitker? Mr. Sears? Mr. Settlemore? Mr. Stratton? Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Tubin? Dr. Walker? Mr. Wand? Mr. Wiles? Mr. Yinger? Mr. Yon? Vice Chairman Williams? Chairman Axelrod?
Here.
President Langley.
Here.
Thank you, Sally. I just want to take a moment before we move on. Usually, well, two of our staff members are not here today. Usually sitting in that chair on the right is Barbara Brooks. This is her 60th anniversary with the USTA, and she underwent hip replacement surgery recently, and so she is recovering, I understand recovering very well, and we will see her at year 61 next year. Also, and I suspect most of you are aware of this, that John Pavlak, who has been a USTA employee for many, many years, last fall was diagnosed with a brain tumor and had surgery to deal with that issue. The surgery was successful. John, unfortunately, is going to have a long-term recovery period, and so I just think, you know, all of our thoughts should go with him during this time because he just has a difficult time. But we're with John, and we'll be supporting him. So I wanted to bring you up to date on both of those employees. We'll move forward to the introduction of new directors. We have 3 this year, and as customary, we'll have the chairman of each district introduce their new director. We'll start with Dick Brandt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can have a second or two of privilege, I would just tell everybody what's been said before, but the reason that Ohio has VLTs is sitting at the head table, and we appreciate all of his efforts. Second of all, before I completely introduce Steve McCoy, who is our new director, I think it's appropriate and fitting that we know who he's replacing, and Chip Noble, who was our previous, held this seat previously, had a very sudden onset of cancer. We thought he was on the road to recovery and got an infection and passed away way too soon. Chip was a great driver, excellent trainer, but even a better guy. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like just a moment of silence in recognition of Chip Noble.
Okay, let's please have that.
Thank you very much. Steve McCoy is the current president of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association. He has served in that position for what I'm sure seems to him to be 15 or 20 years. It's actually, what, 5, Steve? Going on 6. That's unusual in our Horsemen's Association. We usually turn people over after 2 or 3 years, but with our campaign for VLTs, Steve provided such strong leadership that our group asked him again and again to continue to lead us through that transition, and he's done a wonderful job. He's been on the board for more than 15 years, was, like many of us, raised in this business by his father, who was an equine veterinarian, owner, and breeder. Steve's, of course, an Ohio State grad with each bachelor's, and I still can't understand how he got his law degree at Cal Berkeley. But he did. He's done a great job for Ohio, and we're pleased to welcome Steve McCoy to the board of the USTA. Steve?
All right, in District 3, we have a new director, Ben Kenny. Ben's sitting back there. Ben, in conjunction with Chris Schick, several years ago, I guess stepped up to save harness racing in California, and they continue to do that. Ben, as Chief Financial Officer of WatchAndWager.com, which is the organization supporting that meet, spends a considerable amount of time in that effort today. He's been an owner and breeder for 20 years, and probably 12 years ago decided to take a further step and was elected to the California Harness Horsemen's Association, and 2 years later became its president for the next 6 to 7 years. So he has stepped up into the part of the business that we're all in today, has done a great job in doing that during terrible times in California. And prior to that was an investment manager and spent time both in California and the UK managing money and investing. And so Ben brings with us a lot of business experience and horse racing experience, and I want you to welcome Ben to the organization. And Dr. Moffitt. Oh, there you are.
Our newest director from District 11 is Dan Biddle. He's the husband of Suzanne, and they have 2 children. He's the grandson of Charles King Kong Keller, former Major League Baseball player and founder of Yankee Land Farms in Frederick, Maryland. He's a nephew and replacement for Charles Keller III, who resigned from this board in October of 2013. He's a brother of well-respected New Jersey horseman and standardbred trainer Brett Biddle. He's chairman of the Cloverleaf Standardbred Owners Association. He's chairman of the director of the Cloverleaf Standardbred Owners Association. He's a director for the Maryland Standardbred Breeders Association. He's vice president of Yankee Land Farms. He's had a long career in standardbred racing. I'm sure many of you remember him from years past when he was actively involved in the marketing of Yankee Land Standardbreds in Lexington and at Harrisburg. Please welcome Dan Biddle to our board.
Welcome to all of you. I'm sure you will find this weekend's activities interesting and time to get your feet wet with the organization. So thank you for your support of the organization by wanting to take these positions. The next item on the agenda is the proclamation and recognition of directors, which has been moved to tomorrow. So you have that to look forward to on Monday. Election of officers is next, and there are 4 positions, 4 or 5 positions up for this year, as they are one-year terms. That's the chairman of the board, vice chairman of the board, treasurer, and secretary. In each of those 4 positions, I am currently the chairman. Russell Williams is vice chairman, Dick Brandt is treasurer, and Barbara Brooks is secretary. Those 4 individuals submitted their paperwork for nomination this year. No others submitted paperwork to create an election. So therefore, we have no election this year, and those 4 individuals are reappointed to their current position for 2014. How easy that part was. As we move along, the next item on the agenda is the President's report. As all of you look forward to, this is the time for our President, Phil Langley, to give you his views on some of last year, for the future, and things that we should be thinking of during this weekend and moving into 2014. I introduce Phil Langley.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is recognize some of our guests that are here. We have all our directors, or a lot of the directors, but in addition, some very distinguished people are here as guests. One of my good friends and a man that I think has contributed as much to harness racing as anybody. He's been a wonderful president of the Hall of Fame and the Trotting Horse Museum. Ebby Gary is here, and with him is their new director, Janet Terhune, who most of you should know because we taught Janet most of what she knows about harness racing. I'll just run down the list, and at the end we can, if you choose, applaud at the end. With us from the Delaware Brown Jug is Phil Terry, the president of the RCI, Ed Martin, Tom Charters, president of the Hamiltonian Society, David Reed, who we all know from the sales company, one of the more educated people in this business about breeding, John Gallinger from Canada, Gene Brown from Blue Chip Farm, Kathy Parker from the Horseman Fair World, Chris Tully, Howie Trainer's back visiting us. Now that it's been a while since he came back to this meeting, ever since we threw out the Maritimes. Why we've haven't had Howie with us, but he's always at the Little Brown Jug as an official, so we welcome him back. Jay Hickey is here somewhere. Mark Lowe from the new, what do we call it, the Miami Valley Racing?
No. Hollywood at Dayton.
What is it?
Hollywood at Dayton.
Okay. And then we have our ever-present Mr. Naffenberg is here with us. And those are the guests, and we're very pleased to have them all with us. What I'd like to touch, oh, I'm sorry, right. You get old, you forget those things. Now, Corwin always managed to keep his hair dark. Mine has gone completely white since I've been on this.
Tom Lucento.
Who?
Tom Lucento was here too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tom Lucento was here. I forgot about Tom. I ran into him a couple weeks ago down at the HHI convention, and he's got a tough job there in New Jersey balancing the horsemen and the tracks and everything else and trying to get slots, and they couldn't have a better guy working on it, and I think Tom will do just fine. Okay, now that I got interrupted there, I was in church a couple weeks ago, and the minister came up with a story that I think kind of applies to our business. He was talking about this guy was out playing golf. And his ball came to rest in an anthill. And he took a mighty swing, and the ball never moved, but ants were flying all over the place. So he took another swing. And again, thousands of ants all over the place. There were only 2 ants left alive. And one of them said to the other one, you know, if we don't get on the ball, we're going to get killed. And I think that's sort of where we are in this business. We've got to get on the ball or we're going to get killed. That went better than I thought. I've got a list of things that I want to mention and talk about. Don't have a heart attack when you see a list, because most of them I'm just going to mention that are coming up at some of the committee hearings. But one important one is the medication committee. And for those of you who aren't completely familiar with the never-ending saga that's going on with our MTC and RCI, since last September, when the rules first came out that they want to make uniform rules, and they pretty much did away, because of the timing, on clenbuterol administration and on corticosteroids. They also tried to limit it to 24 medications and put in a thing where if you gave a drug after the recommended withdrawal time, you could be subject to a penalty. Alan Levitt was one of the first to point out that these things were a problem, and frankly, Mike and I took some of the blame. It was our fault. We never thought of it at the RMTC meeting, that by putting a 12-day limit on clenbuterol, when we race every week and we give it post-race so we can race the next week, it just never crossed our mind. And the same thing with corticosteroids, that they changed it to 8 days. And as you know, in a lot of our races, especially stake races with eliminations, a horse will race in an elimination race. If he's not quite perfect, why during the week he'll get some limited corticosteroids. And it's always been our policy, and it's worked well. But they didn't think of it, we didn't think of it. So what we did, so that wouldn't happen again, we appointed a medication committee to keep track whenever there's a rule proposed either by RCI or RMTC, that we would understand it, we could study it. We had people on that committee that would know what to do. We've got people like Dr. Malin, Dr. Tobin, we've got veterinarians, Jay Baldwin, from the Maryland or from the Delaware area. We've got trainers, Sam Beagle and other trainers that are, Mark Ford's on the committee. We've got lawyers, Joe Feraldo's a lawyer, he's on the committee. We've got investigators, Bryce Cody, and we've got myself and Mike. And so we're trying to set up a system where nothing's going to slip by us again. Since it did slip by us, and we went to Denver in September to plead our case, so to speak, with the RMTC and explain what happened, we explained what happened. They seemed very receptive to what happened, but unfortunately, they decided, we don't care, we're not going to change the rules. We're going to go for uniform rules the way we propose them. And that's all right. We said, well, that's fine. Go ahead. We think you're wrong. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go to individual racing commissions and try to plead our case and to convince individual racing commissions that they ought to make separate rules for harness and separate rules for thoroughbreds. So far, we've been not what I'd call successful, but so far only 4 states have really passed the rules as presented. There are several other states that are considering it. There are several other states like Ohio that just say they're not going to do it. We had a wonderful hearing in New York about 3 weeks ago that Mr. Feraldo organized. He had veterinarians, he had researchers, he had some wonderful practicing vets. He had Ray's wife was up there. She's a wonderful veterinarian. She testified. We had other people testifying, and I think in New York that it looks like, according to Joe, that we're going to get separate rules for harness and separate rules for thoroughbreds, especially on the 4 things that bothered us. Let me say very, very strongly, Ed's here. We are 100% behind uniform rules. Nothing would please us more as an industry to have uniform rules for harness racing, and even some of the rules apply to thoroughbred racing too. We want uniform rules. We just aren't going to sell out our soul to get uniform rules. If they'd have made an accommodation for uniform rules that helped, that didn't hurt harness racing back in September, I think the uniform rules, it wouldn't be just 4 states that had approved it now. Everybody would be right on the verge of approving it. I don't think anybody would argue against uniform rules. It's very hard, and all trainers and drivers and owners know it, to go to one state or another and have different rules. And we don't want that, but we do want to have medication where it helps us. My theory on medication is we don't want medication that isn't performance enhancing or illegal. But what I do think is that why would we treat horses differently than we treat ourselves? We use every available therapeutic medication that you can to help ourselves. I mean, how many of you have seen the guy on TV that says, I thought I'd have to quit fishing with my grandson because of the COPD? Well, we talk about Lasix, we talk about clenbuterol, and those things, they all help the horse. They make them feel better, and they're not bad medications. They're just part of the world the way it is today. We're not 20 years ago where, you know, nobody knew what they did. PETA, in their article, even said that Lasix masked other drugs. Now, that was true 15 years ago. I talked to Dr. Sams 3 or 4 months ago about that, and I talked to Dr. Robinson at New Bolton just, what's today? I talked to her on the way down here Friday. And she said absolutely no problem anymore. With blood tests and everything and new modern equipment, you can't mask drugs. You can't because of Lasix. So we're just trying to keep working away. Mike and I have been to, one or the other of us, been to Denver, Tucson, Fort Lauderdale, Albany. We're going to meet with Indiana. I've testified in front of Pennsylvania. Illinois. Alan's handled Lexington, or the Kentucky Commission, and I have to say this, he's tried very hard, and he's one of the stalwarts arguing it, but so far it's like Don Quixote going after the windmill in Kentucky. But anyway, so that's where we are on medication, and like I say, besides the things we've done, we want to try to figure out a way to have out-of-competition testing. I think that everybody agrees that out-of-competition testing would be a good thing. We're also looking at, we have a certain amount of money that we've dedicated to medication research, and we've had a couple of proposals. We were going to dole it out and say, you do this, you do that, but I think Joe Feraldo gave me a better idea. He said, why don't we have proposals come in, and we'll do the proposals if they will help harness racing. And that way, even if RMTC had a proposal they wanted to do, we would entertain, if RMTC came up with a good research program that benefited harness racing, we would accept it. We would work with RMTC. Now, at the RMTC meeting last week, Ed Martin said, well, how is RCI going to handle it if we have 2 or 3 medication committees? We're tied into RMTC. And I said, Ed, if our medication committee or our researchers come up with something, we understand it'll have to go through RMTC to be approved by the RCI. That's just the way it is right now. And, you know, so we will try to work with everybody. RMTC would like us to rejoin. I think probably at the moment that's a bad idea. They're just too centered on thoroughbreds, and I want to have harness racing be more on its own than with the thoroughbreds. Okay, so much for medication. I just want to thank some of the people that did things. Go back to the first, there you go. Bylaws Committee, Dick Brandt, Skip Hoovler, Chip Hastings, Sam Lilly, Russell Williams, all worked very hard on doing the bylaws. Dick, in the last 2 years, has revised the rules and revised the bylaws, and having been on most of the phone conversations or here in person, it takes a while, and it's not easy. I mean, you'd be on the phone for 4 or 5 hours, and Skip Hoovler was there too, and argue about one word. And then you get done arguing about the one word, and you go back and somebody will say, well, that's not the right word. But anyway, they've done a good job on that. I want to congratulate Yonkers. They had a meeting in France, and it accomplished 2 things. One, I think that it's going to open up the breeding between the United States and France. It might take a while, but at least there's some kind of working arrangement that can get that done. Joe, Tim Rooney, Mike Kimmelman, Janet, I think, went. I don't know, did Gene go? Did you go they take you to France? They didn't take you to France. Well, I'm sorry. They'll give you Mike will give you a voucher. You can go on your own. But anyway, not only did it open up the breeding, hopefully this fall, the Yonkers races, they're going to go afternoons. And they're going to try to have 7 or 8 trotting races, because in France they can't bet on anything but trotters. So we're hoping in the fall that Yonkers will be able to send their signal to France. We already are sending signals from various tracks to Australia and New Zealand, I think. And they're working pretty well. I mean, it's a lot of extra money. It's not as much as you'd hope, but they're betting as much as $500,000 on certain days from Australia. So it's well worthwhile. The Meadowlands, what can you say? The facility is everything Jeff said it was going to be. It's very nice. Hopefully, when the weather gets warmer, the crowd, that may happen, Jason, so don't get too nervous. The rumor is that along about July, the snow is going to be gone. But anyway, once it warms up, I think that that place will do really well. And I want to also congratulate the new tracks in Ohio. We're opening up 3 or 4 here. Scioto had a wonderful summer last year with the introduction of money from gaming, and I think that they're going to have an even better meeting this summer. Stacy's had a chance to figure out actually how much money is going to come instead of having to estimate it like you did the first year. And I think with the new purses and the new stake races and stuff, that's going to be a highlight of the summer at Scioto. I hope so. Okay, why don't we move along to, oh boy, the PETA thoroughbred exposure. That was a beautiful deal. I think PETA is out to raise money, nothing else. First place, they lie. Although I did see one where they said that they didn't really have any problem getting rid of racing or any kind of thing to do with horses. I forgot who told me this morning, maybe it was Alan Levitt, that they had a picture of a pretty young girl that was representing PETA in the paper the other day, and Alan said he recognized the picture. It was taken 30 years ago. So, you know, they're out to raise money and create problems, and this whole thing will go on through the probably through Belmont, race at Belmont. So we just have to button down the hatches and live through it. Rob Key's going to speak to you in a little bit. The real estate, we're still not trying real hard, but we've had offers on our building. We looked at another building yesterday, which is quite nice, and it's possible within the next 2 weeks that both things will come to fruition and we'll be able to be in a very nice new building that's more fitting for the size of our staff. And instead of being in staff, close your ears right now, but instead of the staff being pretty much in dungeons, they'll have a nice open space to work in if we do go that way. If not, I take back what I said about the dungeons. They're really nice, really nice quarters. That's the real estate. In the drivers committee, as you all know, we've got a lot of comments about kicking, whipping, sitting up, and so forth. Bob covered it pretty good. There's a lot of, it's hard to handle. I don't know exactly how you handle it. I will say this, I've been watching races for 50 years, and until somebody put it on the blog, I never knew that when they were hanging their leg down that they were actually kicking. I just thought their leg was tired. But anyway, so Jeff's going to handle that at his meeting today, and we need to look at it. I don't know that there'll be any changes or anything, but we need to, as a New York Times article said the other day about the wild horses out west, that there's one group of people that think horses should be slaughtered and used for anything you want to use them for. Another group thinks that you shouldn't touch them. And then the middle group, which is trying to find a compromise. And I think that's what we need to do on the kicking, whipping, and the leaning back and see what we can do. Because we do have a great product, but let's just make sure we keep it good. Membership qualifications, we've talked about that. It's going to come up in the regulatory meeting. whether or not, just because somebody gets a state license, they ought to get a USTA membership. Right now, if they get a state license, in effect, they do get a USTA membership. It's just kind of a provisional one. But nobody is denied racing because the state licensed them and the USTA didn't give them a membership. So basically, that's going to be talked about in the regulatory committee. Just as an example, we all know a couple of drivers that got lengthy suspensions a few years ago, and they were given a license to race at the Meadows by the Pennsylvania Racing Commission and by the Meadows. And because they'd been suspended for 5 years, I think it was completely appropriate that we didn't give them a full membership until they proved that they were deserving of getting back in the business. I think it's a reminder to racing commissions to take a little better look than they do at times, but that's one that hard to tell what's going to happen. I know there's sentiment on both sides. Another one that's going to come up in the well, I was going to bring it up at the end, but there's been some talk lately that the annual meeting agenda is a little too packed. We condensed it about a few years ago, and we worked towards shortening it so it's only a couple of days. I don't know, looking at today's agenda, and we'll see how the committee meetings go. Maybe what we'll have to do is maybe start some of the committee meetings, for example, on a Saturday instead of everybody getting here Saturday, late Saturday afternoon or night. Maybe have everybody try to get here by noon, have some committee meetings Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday and Monday wouldn't be quite as packed. But that's one to think about, that one while we're meeting, and see what you think if the meetings get too rushed. Strategic wagering, Chris is still doing a great job on that. It's provided a lot of extra revenue. I know at Balmoral for sure, we love it because with the guarantee of 20 to 25, 30,000, why our handle, instead of being 10 to 15 on those races, is always, usually almost always in excess of 25, 30,000. Sometimes we had a couple where we had a big carryover of 30 or 40,000, put in a $75,000 or $100,000 guarantee in, and we always got the guarantee. So that's a good program. The other thing that's going to come up, and it's going to come up at the marketing committee, is there's been a proposal for a series of television races, and at one of the places at the Little Brown Jug, a couple other places. Jason, I'm sure, will explain it at the marketing committee, and they're looking maybe for USTA to put up somewhere between 50 and 100,000. So that's one that's going to pop up at you sometime during the marketing committee. Well, you'll be glad to know that's all I have to say. And thank you for your attention, and thank you for your efforts during the year. I would, first of all, somebody just came in. Oh, Larry DeVan. Didn't Larry just come in? No. Yeah. He's the new president of the Trotting Horse Museum. And I want to tell you that it's nice to work with people that are enthused about racing and enthused about this meeting and want to be here for the meeting. Jim Reynolds is so enthused that he came last weekend. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phil, for your report this year. As you can see, a lot of what Phil mentioned is going to be talked about in more depth at the various committee meetings. So if you have time and one of these jumps out at you, please attend that meeting, provide your input, and let's make this, an interesting weekend. We'll now move to the Executive Vice President's report. Mike Tanner has words of...
We're going to do that Monday. Mop up on Monday.
Oh, we moved you to Monday?
We did.
Another one they didn't tell me about. And this adjourns us for 2014? No, okay. I didn't know we were moving that. All right. Oh, I see. We wanted to leave more time for Dennis Fisher to talk about the 2013 annual financial statement. Now we had a discussion on who was going to give this report, Dennis or me or Dick Brandt. Dennis won. Dennis? Again, you know, we now, over a period of years, have been able to get our audit done before we meet. And so, therefore, we have it done, and Dennis will spend a short period of time covering the highlights of 2013.
For all the directors, you have the audit in the bound folders. When you checked in, you should have those in your packets. For those people watching online, you'll just have to bear with us a little bit. This is the exciting part of the meeting. I figured if I say that, you guys might be able to bear with me for about 5 minutes. We did get our audit complete by Plant and Moran. We got an unqualified opinion, which is kind of the clean opinion, which is what we are shooting for. I'll basically go to page 3 as we start off. I'll just go over the balance sheet and also the statement of activities, which in the not-for-profit world would be the income and expenses. But on page 3, I'll just highlight a few line items here. A lot of people are always concerned about our cash and equivalents. We basically increased those from about $5.9 million to $6 million. You'll see a new line down about halfway down the page separating out our property and equipment where since we have our properties listed with a broker, they're considered held for sale, and the financial world like to treat those a little bit differently, so you see it broken out, but that's why that's down as a new line item is basically the same net value from last year, or very little change. Total assets staying just a slight increase from 7.108 to 7,186,000. The opposite side of that balance sheet then is our liabilities and kind of the owner's equities, or our net asset area for our nonprofits. And our current liabilities are relatively the same, just off slightly. Our deferred revenue also just off slightly. What I would like to highlight here is on our pension obligations, and this has been a concern for a lot of people. This is our frozen defined benefit plan and the liability that it represents. And we've seen the stock market collapse hit us adversely on this. This past year, our assets outperformed the expectations that we have on that plan. And also, when interest rates increase, the liability drops. And as you know, for quite a few number of years, interest rates have been dropping, and that hits this plan in a negative way. And so now that obligation has been reduced from $1.4 million to just under $600,000. So when you see that big reduction there, you think, where's that money come from? There's not really any money there. It's just a reduced obligation, and you see almost the identical increase under net assets go from 570,000 last year to 1.5 million. And you look at the end of it, and our total liabilities and assets then will balance to our net assets. Going on to page 4, under the statement of activities, this page highlights our revenues, and I'll just hit a few of the highlights here. Our memberships were off slightly, about 1.4%. Track membership dues actually increased, and that's based upon the number of dates and also the amount of purses that are paid. So as those purses have come up, the dues have also come up a little bit. The areas of fees, these are off slightly, again, as we're seeing drops in a lot of areas. Under publications, a lot of our hard copy publications are dropping. The Hoofbeats advertising, while the magazine is down about 1.9%, the advertisers are moving away from this area, and they are down almost 10%. On the flip side of that, well, that's a little negative. You go down to the next area is our data processing area, and you'll see a shift. This is an area that has shown some increases, and the advertising numbers are bouncing up there, as well as the expansion of our STARS program. but we're seeing increases in that area. The other income item that I would like to highlight is our interest expense, or interest income. And again, with that excess of about $6 million in funds that we keep invested, we have those roll over on different maturity dates for a lot of CDs and very conservative investments that we follow with the bylaws. But as interest rates have been dropping, we've had a lot of CDs that have matured that we used to get 4 and 5% on. Now we're lucky to get 1%, and so that's why we see that drop. With all those discussions on those items, our revenues have dropped just about 0.7% from $8.3 million to $8.2 million. Next page is the expenses, and again, I'll hit about 3 or 4 items here. Our salaries show a drop from 2012. We were just a little over $3.5 million to just under 3.3. We did give a 2% base for increases to employees or to the department heads to allocate, but we also had some positions that we were able to absorb, people retiring or terminations that felt we didn't need to replace, and that is why that area has dropped. Under outside help, you see an increase from $683,000 in 2012 to $865,000. Again, the biggest change here is our move into the social media project. Our research and grants, we show a drop of almost $90,000. A big portion of this was the recovery of some claims on some horses in 2012. We supported a lot of horses that needed to be moved out, and the person that those horses belonged to had some property and things like that, and so we took them to court to say, hey, you're responsible for the care of these horses. We've won that letter, and so that's why we see the recovery of that line in 2013. The district and association meeting shows a lot higher expense from 2013 to 12, and that was because of the Congress last year. And other than that, that's pretty much the highlights. You see our total expenses go from $7,784,000 to $7,659,000, are down about 1.6%. And as we talked about earlier, the change below that, a couple lines in the liability of our DB plan, you see last year that because of the interest rates dropping and investment performance, we were down almost $800,000. This year, you see it as a positive number of about $500,000. And with that, if you have questions, bring those. We have a line item on our agenda for our finance at 9:30 tomorrow. So if you don't want to come there, look for me outside. I'll be hiding somewhere where they're serving food probably. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dennis. We have one more item on here that's going to actually have a vote. And so Dick Brandt, would you come up? The Rules Committee met earlier to talk about the revised bylaws, and Dick is now going to bring that to the full board for a vote.
Again, the Rules Committee was charged with looking at our bylaws again, in addition to the folks, and especially the people that Phil mentioned. Chip Hastings did a great job of going through our bylaws first, bringing some ideas to the committee. The committee, again, spent several hours going through them all. We prefaced this meeting by sending to you first a couple of ideas that we had that we thought were the most significant changes, asked for your input, received that, which was all positive, so we left those, we addressed those issues in the change. Then previous to this meeting, we've sent you a copy of this draft, and again asked for more input. Marilyn had some good comment, which we incorporated in these. We then referred it to Rules, of course, and this morning Rules met. Didn't spend too much time on it, but basically unanimously endorsed the bylaws change as is in your folder. And so at this point in time, we will have do we need a motion first, Mr. Chairman? Or do we just vote it?
I think the Rules Committee is bringing it to us for a vote, so we'll just
Yes.
vote it.
We will do a roll call vote as is required by bylaws. Sally?
Mr. Antonacci? Yes. Mr. Ader? Yes. Mr. Beagle? Yes. Mr. Bianconi? Mr. Biddle? Yes. Mr. Bays? Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan? Yes. Mrs. Brewer-Botera? Yes. Mr. Brown? Mrs. Cahill? Mr. Crawford? No. Mr. Cross? Mr. Dedoyen? Mr. Ducharme? Mr. Dunn? Mr. Feraldo? Mr. Fontaine? Mr. Ford? Yes. Mr. Galterio? Mr. Gregory? Yes. Mr. Hawes? Yes. Mr. Hoovler? Yes. Mrs. Ingracia? Yes. Mr. Johnston? Mr. Kane? Yes. Mr. Kenny? Yes. Mr. Kimmelman? Yes. Mr. Landis? Yes. Mr. Levitt? Yes. Mr. Lilly? Mr. Mack? Yes. Mr. McKinnon? Yes. Mr. Marine? Yes. Mr. Marshall? Yes. Mr. McCoy? Yes. Mr. Mackerline? Dr. Moffett? Yes. Dr. Mossbacher? Yes. Mr. Nichols? Yes. Mr. Olford? Yes. Dr. Powers? Yes. Mr. Reynolds? Yes. Mr. Rowland? Yes. Mr. Rooney? Yes. Mr. Schick? Yes. Mr. Schnitger? Yes. Mr. Sears? Yes. Mr. Settlemore? Yes. Mr. Stratton? Yes. Mr. Sweeney? Yes. Mr. Tubin? Yes. Dr. Walker? Yes. Mr. Wan? Yes. Mr. Wiles? Yes. Mr. Yinger? Yes. Mr. Yan? Yes. Vice Chairman Williams? Chairman Axelrod?
Yes?
President Langley?
Yes.
Thank you all. It's clear that we have a two-thirds majority required. Again, I'd like to thank you, but also the committee. Over these last 2 years, we have revised both the rule book and the bylaws. I think that what we have now is a much better documents and procedures set forth for us to move forward on. But we would continue, as always, as we go forward over the years, to ask for your input. You see something else that we missed, which, we probably did. We'll certainly consider it and bring it back to this body for further revision. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. The vote is 46 yes, 0 no. We needed 41 yeses, so the bylaw has passed. And shocking as it may seem, I think there were 100% of the people voted yes, so the legislature somewhere could take it from us, that you can work together.
Or Korea.
Or Korea. Right. There would have been that many votes. All right, now, I want to go through the next 45 minutes with you so you have an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. One thing is, most of you, all of you, should have received. You received one of these that says at 1 o'clock today, there's a discussion in the parimutuel committee meeting, which isn't at 1 o'clock today, it's at 3 o'clock today. So in the parimutuel committee, there's going to be a discussion about crisis communication skills. If you would like input on that and you're free at 3 o'clock, please attend. The balance of our time here, before we move to a group picture, if we have time for the group picture, is a presentation by Rob Key. So in this 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I will introduce Rob shortly, and then the balance of the time is going to be to discuss really whatever you want to discuss from the floor. Issues that were identified in Phil's talk, other issues you have that you would like to discuss in the full general session. So we are allocating somewhere around 30 minutes, depending on how it goes. So that's the process between now and when we are going to adjourn for the picture or the fairs. And if we needed more time, I will somehow move the picture till tomorrow. That being said, Rob Key is CEO and founder of Conversion, a full-service media consultancy that helps brand harness the power of social media to meet business objectives. Most of us met Rob last January in Florida. I would be one of the ones that was impressed with his presentation, his background. He has an understanding of harness racing through himself and his family over many years, and has an organization that works in social media. Last fall, after listening to Rob, the USTA entered into a partnership with his organization to assist harness racing with an innovative social media initiative. Rob is here today to give us an update on that, and we've allocated, I want him to hear this on his way up, about 15 minutes for him to give us an overview. He also is going to make a presentation at tomorrow's Communication and Marketing Committee. So if you want more depth, you will get it there. And so now, without any further ado, I bring you Rob Key.
Hi, everyone. It's about the same weather today as it was back in Fort Lauderdale, I think, when I met you the first time. But so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but as was mentioned, I'm here for an hour tomorrow to go through this in depth. And I just want to start off by saying, you know, we're on a journey together. And this was a journey that I didn't really expect when I met with all of you down in Fort Lauderdale, but it's a journey that's been pretty close to my heart, and it's been pretty interesting. And I want to show you exactly where we are and where we're going. Some of this stuff that you probably haven't even seen yet. So let me see if I can get this thing working correctly. Yeah, here we are. So when I talk about we're on a journey, any organization, and we work with a lot of different types of organizations, from Procter & Gamble to IBM to others. They go through this process of how do you do this stuff in a sustained way. If we're just going to throw pebbles in the water and create little ripples and then go away, we shouldn't start with this initiative. But we have, and if we do it, we have to do it right. So the first step in the process that we've been through, which actually started around September, we went through an assessment phase where we first had to kind of map what is the experience from a potential consumer or owner who wants to get involved in harness racing. What does it look like when they go online? What are they looking for? What do they see? When we talk a lot today, the word of consumer experience is near and dear to many chief marketing officers and brands around the country, and we have to think about the same way. So we looked at all the assets, and we looked at what's out there, and we made a determination that there were a lot of things that needed to be built. Because if you do marketing and you bring people to an experience and it's a terrible experience, they're not going to come back. And if you think about some of the experiences we have online, because for those of you who have kids or other folks as well, like they're living in their iPad, right? Or they're living in their iPhone. That's an experience. This digital experience is part of the product experience. What does that look like? So we've been building things behind the scenes. And I'm going to show you some of this stuff today. The next step, once we have these new assets that we can actually drive people to that are drive positive experiences, it's about scaling this and doing it in partnership with tracks, et cetera, and other industry participants that are here today. So we have a lot of work in front of us, but one of the things as we went through this assessment, and I'm sure for you this is no real surprise, one of the challenges we've had, there's not much industry collaboration. Everybody was off doing everything. A lot of people were doing things with good spirit and good intent, but they weren't working together. And so what we've been doing is thinking about our fan base. We've diluted them across multiple different properties. If you go to Facebook and you put in harness racing, you're going to see about 300 communities for Facebook. Where does the person go? And so one of the things we really wanted to do is just start to aggregate audiences together. We need a center of gravity, so we start to bring people into one place. And but when we get them together, we also have to bring them to something that is an experience that they've become accustomed to seeing with other sports. And one of the things we haven't had, we have some wonderful websites, the US Trotting and and Kathy Parker's and Harness Link. There's a lot of interesting content going out there, but we did not have any what we call major league digital assets, like the NFL, like NASCAR, like others. We also had content that's everywhere and nowhere. One of the great assets this sport has is its history, but digging that content out and finding it I think most of it's in Dean Hoffman's attic, so I've been trying to get him to kind of give us some of that stuff. And there aren't a lot of good, new ways for fans to learn about the sport. So this is kind of where we are. And frankly, a lot of our research showed, as we did social listening conversations, and I showed a lot of you in Fort Lauderdale last year, we're off the radar screen. You know, people were talking about thoroughbreds, talking about different sports, but we really weren't on the radar screen at all. So, what have we done? Well, the second phase in that process that I showed you is a phase that we call enablement. And this is focusing on what we call people, processes, and technology. These are the skills and these are the capabilities we need as an industry to be able to do this at scale over time. We don't do it one-off, but we're going to be able to do this over the coming years so that we can actually dig out of the hole, the marketing hole that we've really been in for a period of time. So that includes designing and building what I'm calling major league assets, and I'm going to show a couple of these things to you. Because we have to help repackage this experience of the sport through this new technology and content, right? We want people to go to the racetrack, but every touch point that a potential consumer or owner has with the sport in an online environment has to be positive and something that they feel like they want to participate in. We're not competing with just other sports, we're competing with all other brands who are trying to get to these folks, and especially these millennials who don't have a lot of bandwidth. How do we break into that? So instead of disaggregating all these audiences all over the place, what we've been working to do is bring a center of gravity together where we have a hub and spoke approach. So we're going to bring everyone together and then siphon them off and send them off to different sport or different sites and different venues, et cetera, and drive more collaboration. So this is the foundation. I won't go through this in detail, I will tomorrow. This is the foundation that any large organization who wants to be successful in social needs to have. There are governance and policies. We've been through some of that. I will say there has to be an issue in terms of, we saw what happened to Joe Bongiorno, in terms of speaking in social media and transparency and openness. It hasn't been tackled yet for our sport. We need to spend some time on that. And I have a strong opinion in terms of transparency and openness, but I think it's something that we do, this group and the other groups have to kind of take on at some point. There's measurement and reporting, which we're doing quarterly reports. I'll touch on a little bit of that today. How do we get integrated into these community and platforms that we haven't necessarily been invited to, things ranging from Google Plus to YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Training, we've actually done multiple training sessions. 10 out of 15 tracks, I think, have participated in training sessions right now because we have to raise the knowledge. This is not me doing something for all of us. It's about all of us working together. We need to raise the knowledge of how to engage in social media. That continues. Now, the technology side. This is critical. There are three key elements that we need to be able to have the major league assets needed to be able to do this for sustainable success. I'm going to show you this thing called the fan zone. Then we also have a real-time listening and engagement technology that's been offered to a lot of the different tracks. Some of them are using it, some of them are not using it. We live in a real-time environment, and so this is something I'd like to see us make a little bit more use of. And we have a social ambassador platform, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, let me first introduce to you the Harness Racing Fan Zone.
This is Harness Racing. We invite you to be a part of it all. The Harness Racing Fan Zone puts you in the driver's seat.
All right. The Harness Racing Fan Zone is modeled after fan zones that actually exist at Major League Baseball, NFL, et cetera. And what this is it gives consumers and potential owners the experience that they expect from a major league sport, where this day and age, it's not just about watching a sport. They expect to be able to participate in a sport. So what we have here is a few different things that I'm just going to highlight very quickly. We have a promotions section. Oh, and let's start over to the right. Excuse me 1 second. One of the things we've noticed is that many organizations, many of the tracks were doing promotions in different places, but there was not one primary place where promotions could be organized and available for potential consumers. If we click through this promotion section, you would actually see an entire section where all the promotions in the sport from all the different tracks are going to be available. Share your story. There's a place where people can actually upload their story and their photos and their videos about what they love about the sport so that they can have their voice heard. We have an In the Zone blog now so that voices of the industry and people who are fans of the sport can actually be profiled. We have a photo section, we have video section, we have a be an owner, which we actually need to build a lot more content out about why this would be compelling to do it. Now, down below, if you see the beginning Facebook on the left, this is a hub and spokes approach. So this is the center of gravity. You can click through any of those icons and you can immediately go to the Facebook fan zone. You go to Twitter, Google+, Vimeo, YouTube, Pinterest, etc. So think of this as the center of gravity for a lot of our efforts. Down below, you can actually see real live conversations that people are having about harness racing that they can actually partake in. And there's little sharing buttons on the bottom so they can say, hey, I want to share this to my social network. I'm going to send this to my friends, etc. So we've essentially enabled the casual fan or the casual owner to drive them somewhere and give them an experience just like Major League Baseball and others. Now, there's a section also when you say be there, you can click through and we have the various racetracks there with a map and little pins, and you can click through and you can get more information about the track. Now, there are two good opportunities for tracks to participate because I wanted to be very sensitive. It wasn't just for the big tracks, this is for everybody. Every promotion, we've reached out to various tracks to be able to say, how can we help you? How can we help your efforts? How can we help you amplify your voices? And we've got some really positive feedback. Scarborough Downs, Hoosier Park, Meadowlands, you've had some meetings with Yonkers too. Like people are coming so they can start to see how they can make use of this thing. So they're not just a tree falling in the woods. They can also have a page, every track will have a page within this, beautifully designed, socially integrated for each track so that they can actually have a place here so they can actually get their own marketing and their own communications out. So I think that's important because with some of the tracks we've talked to, they've talked about how difficult it is to be able to get their marketing through, especially in the racinos, to some of their websites. So we've now built an asset that can be leveraged by everybody. So that's one. So now that we have this, how do we start getting to potential new fans? Well, we've just launched, some of you know, the Top 100 Moments in Harness Racing. Now, this is really about energizing our base. There are a lot of people who have touched and experienced harness racing at some point in their lives who have these great moments and these great stories and their great history. We want to get to them. This is a partnership that I'm really proud to say because, as I said, there wasn't a lot of collaboration at the beginning. This is the Harness Racing Museum. Thank you for participating in this. The Harness Writers Association, the USTA, and I'm going to probably leave somebody out. But we have a cross-industry collaboration here where people can go through their closets and go through their attics and find their videos and find their stories and uplift and lift it up, where they actually can post all the information in their story and other fans can vote on it to say what's wonderful, right? This is what we call a crowdsourced opportunity to make everybody feel part of the sport and to be able to bring out some of those wonderful stories that we have in the sport. And that's energizing our base. Dean Hoffman's involved in that. We've talked with the museum about having the winners being profiled or exhibited on some level at the museum. That's to be determined. But we're also working on some specific race promotions, and these are going to be rolling out on an ongoing basis. We did something for Foiled Again versus Captain Treacherous at the Meadowlands. There was a nice spike in social conversation, and we're working with Yonkers right now to be able to do something for Foiled Again this time, to be determined on that. One thing you all probably have not heard of either is how do we get people to tune in to the Grand Circuit? Well, we wanted to go to our friends at Berkshire Hathaway for $1 billion for a bracket, but we couldn't quite get that. What we were able to do, though, is we found some insurance to be able to cover $1 million promotion for anybody who can pick 30 winners for 30 Grand Circuit races this year. Now, we'll have backup prizes because the odds of doing that are difficult. But what we wanted to do was to do something at $5 or $10 million, but it was prohibitive. We actually have too many favorites winning our races. There was a lot of calculations that would have went into this. But this is extremely important if we're going to break through to the same people who are doing this thing with the Quicken Loans, NCAA tournament, new fans, and others. It's a big enough number to get some attention, to galvanize some people, and start to bring them into the sport. Now, if we had more resources as an industry, we would probably partner with Yahoo, who kind of owns the fantasy league, and they could drive huge amounts of traffic. We're going to talk to Yahoo anyhow, I know it's going to be out of our price range this year. But this starts to introduce us to a new generation of fans in really interesting ways, and we're excited about this. We have to get some details on this. The first race, the USTA had worked on 15 different races that represents all the different tracks. There's a couple of Yonkers, a couple of the Meadowlands, et cetera, but we covered everybody, so everybody's being involved. This will also be very important if there's a television effort. But as you go through the fan zone, we also have the ambassadors program. Now, what is an ambassadors program? These are folks who love the sport or have an interest in the sport and working together in a collaborative fashion to be able to share content, upload content, and help spread the word through social media. We have about 30 or 40 ambassadors right now. We actually have a leaderboard, so we can actually see who is most successful in terms of sending those along. I think the leader right now is our friend, Mr. Tully over there. But what we can do is by having this leaderboard of seeing who's most successful, we can actually reward those performers. When you don't have a lot of media dollars, which we don't, you get people to work for us by inspiring them to do action, giving rewards, giving them recognition, and getting the folks who love harness racing to help spread the words. NASCAR has something similar with about 30,000 folks. This will scale over time. What this really turns into, which I find it really interesting, or the potential being very interesting, is that this technology, which is by the way used for Disney and their ambassadors and other things as well, is that we can have a core group of ambassadors who love the sport, but we will expand it to even casual fans. So the casual fans will be able to collect rewards for helping to spread the word through social media, which can then be redeemed at various tracks or for the organization. This sport has never had a rewards program, and the Meadowlands has already agreed to do some things in terms of, whether it's a free program or a drink or whatever it might happen to be. I've talked with, a couple other tracks. So that could really grow at scale. The LA Dodgers have had immense effort or immense success doing something similar. But let me take you to something else, because we can do all these things. We've got about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, so I'm going to do this quick. How do we repackage the sport through technology to give people the visceral feel of what it feels like to be in the sport? Because we can do all this stuff and bring these people together. But how do we get them to understand and feel what we love about this sport? And it's kind of, how does it feel to be in a race? That changes people. That feeling of speed, the feeling of power.
Every dream has a start.
This is a promotion video. I'm breaking a rule, which says never show people things until they're done. But I'm going to show them to you anyhow to give you a sense of what we're getting at. So please go ahead.
And this one is ours. To trot and pace fast, faster than all the others, and maybe faster than any horse ever has. With every stride, 1,200 pounds of pure equine determination. In every turn, there's a tale. Every bet is a hope. No 5-year returns, no annuities, 401ks. Return on investment comes in seconds. Maybe they say that the odds are against you. But nothing great comes easy. Winners don't second guess. They sprint through openings and dig in deeper when the going's tough. No horse ever rides alone. The owners, the driver, the groom, and you. There are no sidelines here. The world is often full of many compromises, but not here. Not on this day. Not in this race. Not with this horse. Not in this sport. Once you feel it, it becomes you. Once you become it, your dream becomes ours. This is harness racing. We welcome you to the Harness Racing Fan Zone. See it all for yourself. Feel it in all the passion. Share that experience with others. And be a part of it all. The Harness Racing Fan Zone puts you in the driver's seat.
So that's first round. I would like to say Yannick has agreed to wear the same GoPros. To actually get some of this footage, we had 4 GoPros on bikes and drivers, even some facing back, some facing forward. to give that people, because we need our fans who are, looking at NASCAR, looking at, all the other sports, what's the visceral feel of what this sport is and what we love? And to me, we're getting closer to that experience. But we are going to shoot again, so Yannick has agreed to do this with foiled again. And so we're going to be going up to Yonkers, and we're going to have all the GoPros going, and we're going to be starting to get some, really interesting footage. I've had my video guys who actually did a lot of work for Visa in the Olympics. They want to fly a drone over the top, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get that far. So I don't know if the race secretaries will go for that, but in any event. I just want to conclude because my time is up. A couple things in the conversation. This is from, we did a from September until today versus previous year of social conversations. We focused just on doing a few proofs of concept last year, the jug, the Breeders' Crown, the Hamiltonian, a couple of things like that. Overall conversation has increased about 26% year over year. For the things that were focused, we had about a 40 to 80% increase in social conversation. You can see positive sentiment really rose. This is for a few of the specific focused efforts. And now remember, these were efforts that didn't have the fan zone or the ambassador program or a lot of these other things in place yet. So I'm looking forward to this scaling substantially this year. And you can see positive sentiment towards the sport has increased around those events. What's next? We're going to scan the fan zone with more participation, promotions, engagement. We need to really partner with the tracks and the horseman groups. We need everybody involved. We want to expand the ambassador program. We have some shirts here for ambassadors, so we'll be handing some out. I'd like to invite Nick Salvi, who's one of our newest ambassadors. So Nick, thank you for joining. We will coordinate with some of the TV effort. Let me simply say that television without a social media effort is a challenge. We work with HBO and others. They put huge efforts among social media to drive appointment viewing and watching, and I think it's critical, and I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. And we also need some more, obviously, participation from some other groups as well. I've been very heartened by the great support we've had from many different quarters. We need everybody. And my view is, as we move forward next year, we're looking to a 300 or 400% increase in that social business, that social conversation and engagement that we've had. We will, with these promotions, because the question is going to come up, well, how many people are going to the tracks, and how is this increasing handle? Well, we're going to start to measure promotions and other things about driving appointment viewing and watching and tracks and other things over time. But this is a journey, and this is going to take time. We now have assets to use. And I will simply say one last thing with these assets. We now have the ability to start to go to sponsors for the sport that we've never been able to go for. I know Sam McKee is here, but he was telling me that these assets have proven very important to potentially closing a deal for the Little Brown Jug in terms of sponsorship. We can now take these things to Red Bull. We can take these things to others. This is what potential sponsors expect from a sport if they're going to sponsor it. So we now have it 7 months later. A lot of work to go, but thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob. Now you have that update. Again, Communication Marketing Committee tomorrow, there'll be a full presentation and more depth on this. Again, questions you have, more understanding, participate in that committee meeting tomorrow. Now, before we break, we've had some input that we never seem to have enough general session time to talk about issues, questions, things you'd like more elaboration on. As I said, Phil's comments in his presentation, something bothering you. The toughest thing I have when I'm with a group is I'm done and I say, okay, I'm ready for questions, and nobody wants to ask the first question or make the first comment. This is a pretty aggressive group, so I am hoping I don't have to do something other than say, okay, the mic is yours. We've got a group up here, others to answer questions, deal with any issues you have. Now's the time to let us know what your thoughts are. What do you want more information on? I got a half an hour here. It'll happen. Just give you a little time. Come on, Jason. I can always count on you.
He's saving it for tomorrow.
Are we saving it for tomorrow? Not good. All right. Jeff. You know, when I do this in my office, I then give a gift card to the first person. I forgot to mention that.
I'll take it.
All right, Jeff.
My name's Jeff Gregory from New Jersey. It's a question for Mr. Schmitz. It's probably not a great idea for a catch driver to get involved in a back and forth with a racing commissioner, but you've been pretty outspoken about the drivers and what your plans are in Ohio. In reference to the Tattersall's pace, which you said you were appalled at the drivers, I just wondered if you could explain to the board how you feel about the decision, which I realize it's not your jurisdiction, but there are similar judges working for you, about their original call as to not do anything about it, and said that it was pretty much a bad rule that they didn't feel like enforcing. And after a backlash from the industry, then a decision was made.
Are you speaking, sir, about what happened in Kentucky?
Yes,
By the judges in Kentucky?
yes.
The disqualification?
No.
there was no-
There was no action taken
Well, there-
because the
I-
judge was quoted
Well,
as saying that he didn't
late-
believe.
Later on, there was, and.
After a
and
backlash
They were
of it.
fine. Yeah. There were
I
fines.
understand they were fine, but if this was done originally from the get-go, we probably wouldn't have had this outcry from the industry. I'm just wondering about your thoughts. If you think maybe the other parties could have been just as equally responsible for the outcry that's going on now, and not just the horsemen.
Sir, I'm not following you. You're asking me as a regulator? do we-
Somewhat responsible for not enforcing the written rule from the get-go. And it took this long for something to be done about it.
We have in Ohio been enforcing this rule. What we have done is we have increased the penalties. And when the drivers' colony came to Delaware, there was posted and there was a drivers' meeting, and there was, the penalties and fines were distributed to the drivers there. And at the same time, at the commercial raceways, we also not only enforced rules, but we increased the fines.
I understand that.
And we're even to the point in Ohio that we are now assessing days for these violations.
I guess
And will continue.
I understand that. I guess my question to you would be, do you think this has become a snowball effect of what has gone on and what has been let to go on for a number of years? I mean, personally, there's a reason I drive 75, 80 miles an hour down the New Jersey Turnpike. It's because I can get away with it, and it's not being enforced. Do you have any feelings about how this has become out of control in some people's eyes?
Are you more talking about the regulators enforcing the judges to call this a violation?
Our judges work for the racing
Right.
commissions.
Well, now, in Ohio, one of them, our presiding judge, works for the racing commission. The other two judges are employees of the racetrack.
Well,
I hope it snowballs. I hope folks have noticed what's going on in Ohio and will file in behind us and make sure that these types of things don't happen.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
somewhat, but I don't think,
Do you drive in Ohio?
I have in the past, yes. Not on a regular basis, but I have in the past, yes. Drove
But
about everywhere.
I'm sure the word is out amongst drivers around the country when they come to Ohio, they know what to expect.
I understand that, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just one thing quickly.
Sure.
This hasn't to do with you. I have a daughter that lives in South Carolina, and she's a harness racing fan. She's already been in contact with me that there was a tweet that was talking about this meeting and the comments I made about kicking. So that's how quickly it works.
Yeah. Social media is fast, that's for sure.
Yes, I was wondering if some of the parties involved with the disagreement regarding Monticello Raceway and that has resulted in the relatively low purses there could update the group about what what the issue is and how that might be resolved.
Royal Roland.
Yep.
Oh, I missed the question because I was doing that. What was his question?
I don't think they want to negotiate in public.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, I guess I shouldn't be doing
This is Joe Feraldo.
Yeah. The problem, the way we see it at Monticello, and I guess there's more wisdom in Sean's position and not saying anything, is that we as horsemen believe that there is a partnership between racetrack management and the horsemen. We understand that there are big capital investments by the racetracks, and we also understand how much money we spend at the sales and how much money we lose as owners in this game. And we've been partners since there was nothing but on-track wagering. We were partners when on-track wagering became simulcasting. We were partners when there was off-track betting. We were partners in this venture with the racetrack operator when we went to ADWs. We were partners in this venture when we got the legislation that had slot machines. We rise and fall like the boat in the water when the tide goes up or down based upon the function of, is the racetrack making money? We need them to make money. And what we've done in New York is we've been very aggressive on behalf of our partners, the racetrack. Now, what I mean by that is, when there was a statute that's still in place that says thou shalt pay the horseman 8.75% of the video lottery terminal money, we went to the tracks and did a number of things. In the beginning, we said to Yonkers Raceway, Vernon Downs, Monticello, where I'm involved in those 3 tracks, that you don't need to pay us that amount of money. We understand the capital investment that you made. We are partners. Even though we are minority partners, we're partners. I went up to Albany and actually negotiated a reduced tax rate for Yonkers Raceway. In addition to saying, you don't need to pay us 8.75%, we'll take 7.9% for the first 2 years. We'll graduate that number up because we understand that we're in a partnership relationship. Now there's a new piece of legislation that affects all of the tracks in New York. It will not affect Yonkers until 7 years under the current legislation, but it affects other racetracks. Monticello was the first one whose contract came up for revision. And there are 2 avenues or paths that I could advise a client to follow. One is upstate, you negotiate a contract for purse payments. So the way in the past contracts we gave the tracks something, we asked the tracks for something back to maintain the partnership, because the law, foolishly in my opinion, capped the purse level that we could reach at 2013 purse levels. Now, if you're in the horse business, you know that that level where you're frozen at is not going to keep up with your vet bills, your feed. I asked one of the horsemen in 2004 how much did feed cost, and his answer was for $11 for 100 pounds of feed. Same feed, same company today, it's $21 for 50 pounds. So if we are frozen at 2013 purse levels, and the track or the state doesn't see fit, again, there's 2 paths we can follow. They don't see fit to make adjustments the way we did, then the problem escalates. And in the past, one of the things that has happened at Monticello was the horsemen exercised their right under the Federal Interstate Horse Racing Act to stop the simulcasting. Now that dropped the purses, which it did back in 2006 when the same thing occurred. It dropped the purses because the track, I guess, felt, and maybe I'm incorrect, that if they dropped the purses, the horsemen would have to buckle. Problem is that they're holding purse money of ours. There's still an influx of purse money. And unless that purse money is distributed or monitored by the Gaming Commission, the racetrack has an upper hand in that regard. However, I think the Gaming Commission has interceded, raised, somehow the purses got raised. Let me just say somehow they got raised 33%, and just this new condition sheet, they're going to be raised an additional 28%. And the problem is there going to be a partnership? Is someone going to stand up for racing, agriculture, the way we know it, or are we just going to say, we don't have to stand up for the future growth of this industry? We should accept that we will be frozen at certain levels, knowing that we're not going to be able to pay increased costs as the future goes on. Agriculture and racing will suffer. Someone has to stand up on behalf of the horsemen, and that's what's going on at Monticello. Now, we don't like it. We don't like that the track is hurt. We don't like that the horsemen are hurt. But what we're trying to do is for the good and the future of the industry. That's basically enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. John Brennan.
As some of you may know, I wrote a letter about the denial of membership to some horsemen who were licensed by commissions, by 6 commissions and another by 4 commissions, and they were denied membership in the USTA. Now, I know that we were talking about discussing this in regulatory, but it's my opinion that any time a person is given a license, in this case multiple licenses, and he decides to apply for membership in this organization, he should get it. I know there's differences of opinion. We've discussed this before. Last year there was a committee made by the president that never came to fruition to solve this out. I was told that it was going to be done. We never got it done, for whatever reasons. But I would like people to think, we're going to discuss it in regulatory, that, that I don't understand why we're alienating people. You know, and some of these people may have been not allowed to race at a different track. You know, the right of exclusion in Yonkers has been there. There's been people that have not been able to race there, but they still were able to get a credential. One of the guys was a friend of mine, and the other guy I don't know really well, but he served a 10-year suspension, paid a $100,000 fine. The other guy, he showed me his record, and I saw his record, and he runs a big stable, 60, 70, 80 horses, and most of his fines and suspension were over stupid things. Having the wrong number on, warming up at the wrong time. And I just would like everybody to know that this is something that I think that we should not be doing. We shouldn't be judging people twice. If Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey decide that this person should be racing, he should be racing, and he should not get a Rule 1, Section 3. And he should not get a letter telling him when this happened and these people got Rule 1, Section 3, they got called into various commissions by investigators to find out what this was all about. And the other thing, which I want to address in an email I got from Phil, the Saratoga situation, which I brought up in this letter. And Phil said, and I don't want to get into an argument with Phil, we've had many of them, or Mike, but Phil said that he wanted support from the horsemen. He wanted them to say that they should pull a license in Saratoga when they didn't have the on-track insurance for the drivers. And I know from being in the game and training horses for 40 years, if I walked into Phil Langley's office at Balmoral and told him, I don't like the fact that you don't have on-track insurance, which he does, and always has and has had more than anybody else has ever had. But if I went into anybody, Stacy, Mr. Rooney, if I told them I didn't like their insurance, I know if each one of them stood up, what my answer would be. Well, don't race here. So to take that stand and have people say, well, we asked the horsemen to go in to talk about it, is not. They didn't follow the rules and they should have been suspended as far as I'm concerned. But I just wanted to explain this. I wrote this letter 7 times before I had a friend of mine clean it up, okay? I wrote it 7 times, there was language in there that was probably, I'm not a writer, I'm not Phil Langley, Ivan Axelrod, or DJ Burkett, but I wanted the people to understand that 2/3 of this board is membership directors. And everybody that's out there that is in the membership should evaluate me and every other membership director and find out if they think they're getting proper representation. And if they're not, they should get rid of them. Thank you.
May I respond?
Thank you, John, very much. Certainly.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry, Phil Langley. I disagree with your theory that everybody who gets a state license should get a USTA membership. I talked about that this morning. We just happen to disagree on that. I have reasons, you have reasons. You quoted the Saratoga thing and quoted me as saying, I told them, don't race if you don't like it. It's not quite true, John. I spent hours and hours arguing with Skip Carlson to increase the insurance. In fact, when the insurance rule was passed, I told Joe Feraldo, it's too low, Joe. We've been paying $250,000 at Balmoral, Sportsman's, and Maywood for 10 or 15 years, so I'm not against insurance. I told the horsemen we would suspend Saratoga's license if the horsemen up there said they wanted us to, and the reason I say if you want us to is because I didn't want to put them out of business and tell them they had nowhere to race without their permission. We were more than willing, I think Mike was on board then, we were more than willing to tell Saratoga, you're in violation of the rule and you can't race. But I don't want to hurt the horsemen doing it, and so all we did was say, hey, if you guys up there want us to enforce the rule, we'll enforce it. And I kind of take exception to the fact that you implied that we told the horsemen, if you don't like it, don't race. That's not true. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, Mr. Feraldo, once again. New topic.
No, the same topic.
Well, not Monticello.
No, not the Monticello topic. I don't need to speak for John Brennan. He spoke for himself. But if the USTA is going to have respect from the horsemen on us, from our side of the equation, the enforcement of rules has to be on an equal basis. It has to be fair and it has to be level. If Saratoga did not comply with the USTA rule, action should have been taken against Saratoga. Assuming arguendo, Phil, that you did say to Saratoga, and the horsemen said, yeah, pull their ticket, what effect would that have had in New York? None whatsoever. But at least it would have showed everyone else in the industry that there was an equal enforcement of the rules against the horseman, who is a miscreant, and against the track that is not following the rules of this association. I noticed today in the bylaw change, and I didn't speak up this morning, but I saw that there was a provision that membership could be denied to an individual who lacked the character and fitness, general fitness, to be involved in our sport. I also noticed that it was taken out for a track membership. Now, I just don't think that that's basically fair, and I don't think that your response to that situation was appropriate. And you did mention my name, and I did disagree with you. And I still disagree with that position of non-enforcement. Whatever the consequences are, I don't think Saratoga would have been shut down, but at least it would have made a statement that the USTA is treating track operators who are not in compliance, and there have been situations where that's occurred. There was one track upstate years ago that was past posting your gamblers in Illinois, and you brought it to my attention. Now, their membership in this association, there should have been some action taken. There wasn't. And that sends the wrong message, I think, in the industry to track operators. It makes people think that, unfortunately, the USTA might stand for the United States Track Association. And that's the wrong message to give. I know we disagreed. I know you've stated your position, but since you mentioned my name, you invited me up here.
I mentioned your name because you proposed the first rule. And I take exception to the fact that you and John are saying that we didn't take any action. We spent hours trying to convince Saratoga to do what they wanted to do. When they wouldn't do it when we were supposed to do. When they wouldn't do it, I think we either went to Skip or I might have gone to you and said, look, if we want to enforce the rule, that's fine. But before we enforce the rule, warn the horsemen that they might not be getting to race. And if it's bad for us to support the horsemen and make sure that they can still earn a living, well then I guess you're right. We're U.S. Track instead of U.S. Horsemen, and I take exception to that. I always have.
Okay. So I have 5 minutes, unless I need more.
Why don't you ask some good questions?
Wasn't going to speak, but David Reed.
David Reed.
To follow up on Jeff Gregory and even Mr. Faraldo and Phil. And I'm not a regulator, and I'll be the first to admit that I don't read the rules and regulations of the USDA. But listening to Mr. Key, we talked about social media, and I really think that he is onto something with the new Meadowlands, with the newer tracks in Ohio. I think I just have a couple questions, and you don't have to answer now, or maybe you can. But whose rules do the racetracks have to follow? Getting to the commissioner from Ohio, talking about dropping a foot here in Ohio, Kentucky, New York. It's very confusing to the fans when they see somebody doing one violation in one district versus another. The second thing is the judges that are at these racetracks, who they work for and who are they responsible for, and is there any punishment if they make a poor ruling. And the third thing is, are the rules of racing universal in each state? Because that's where I think the fans have a hard time saying, did a driver do the right thing or the wrong thing? The drivers are going to sit there and say, I'm representing the better, I'm doing everything I can to win the race. There's pylon infractions, there's whipping infractions. They're not dealt with on a consistent basis. So maybe in the Rules and Regulations Committee, if it's hard to set a clear path of what the rules are, someone mentioned maybe we should fine them more. And I just happen to be sitting back here, and I'm not a big fan of fines, but somehow, if we're going to promote the sport and be clarity and consistent, social media, that if a guy's watching a race or a fan's watching a race in Ohio or New York or New Jersey, that a violation is a violation. I've seen horses go inside pylons, come back out of pylons, come on to finish second, they stay up. I see a horse on an extended break. Some tracks they stay up, sometimes they don't. So there it goes, we got to protect the better, the fan, the drivers, the trainers. So if you can somehow have some clarity as to who is responsible and whose rules are following, and getting back to John about a trainer not being licensed by the USTA, can he race at certain tracks? It's very confusing to the people, and I think, unfortunately, I know we, do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, but I think we have to firm up our rules and enforce them on a state level, and an industry level.
Unfortunately, the USTA's rules are pretty much advisory to any racing commission, and the racing commission can do however they want to do with all the rules. And in most places, they're affected by lobbies from horsemen and everywhere else. Unfortunately, every state, gambling in every state has to be authorized by that state. And every state, when they do that, has the right to make their own rules. And hopefully, they will all follow pretty much the rules we make here. I understand your concern about the pylons, about braking and everything else, and I wish they were all consistent, and we would try to make it so that they are, but they're not, and there's nothing other than lobbying to get them all the same. And right now we're working on medication, but as far as racing rules, and they're probably 95% the same. The judges in some jurisdictions, one of them works for the track, two of them for the state. In other jurisdictions, all three work for the state. In other jurisdictions, they all work for the track. So there's really no, I agree with you, there's no common ground, and it would be very nice if there could be a common ground. And I guess that's one of the things we should work for, but at the moment, no matter what we do, the states have jurisdiction. I don't know if that answered it, but.
You
Yeah.
want me to address that?
Certainly. You can certainly talk for Ohio.
Well, sometimes I do. In Ohio, we follow, as a guideline, what the United States Trotting Association's rules pretty much. However, each state is different, and in Ohio, we promulgate our own rules and our own fines. And what happens in the classic example, not classic example, an example that I mentioned to you earlier, in Kentucky, the rules were different on kicking and whipping, and the judge's interpretation of that than what the United States Trotting Association rules are, and what the rules for Ohio and our fines and penalties were. So I would say that the vast majority of the harness racing rules in this country are patterned after the United States Trotting Association's rules, but obviously they are promulgated by each separate jurisdiction, and there's a few twists. And as far as uniformity, RMTC is probably is a classic example of trying to make uniform things that we'll get back to the differentiation and the bifurcation of the rules for thoroughbreds and standardbreds. So the final authority is the state, the final enforcement is the state, and as I stated earlier, in Ohio, we have one presiding judge, and there are two other associate judges that are, the presiding judge is a contract employee for the State Racing Commission. The other folks are obviously licensed by the State Racing Commission, but they are employees of the racetrack.
And just on that, and the RMTC has spent 10 years so far getting to the point they are now, so it is not a fast process. John Brennan? And then we'll adjourn.
Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to ask you to go back to Jeff Gregory. There's kicking the horse, and like you said, there's brushing the hock. I've trained horses for 40 years. Very, very few times can I see a driver brushing the hock. After that incident in Kentucky and Little Brown Jug with the kicking, you had some of the top drivers in the sport talking about do you think that maybe that these drivers, the top drivers in the sport, should be consulted in, there's kicking the horse and there's brushing his hock. When somebody goes out and they kick the horse between the legs, I never drove, so I don't know. But you got drivers here that win a lot of races. It's a totally different thing. The whipping, I understand we're dealing with PETA. I understand we're dealing with a lot of things. But as far as like brushing the hock, it's been going on long before I got in the game. And these drivers who are the best, the top drivers, they seem to think that there's nothing wrong with it. And I just think that maybe, we should, it's just like when you're making medication rules, you should go to veterinarians to help you make the rules.
I have talked to some of the top drivers in the sport about kicking and brushing the hocks. What I will tell you is that there's a specific prohibition in Ohio rules and also in United States trotting rules that say you have to keep your feet in the stirrups. You only get one free, I don't want to call it a kick, but foot out of the stirrup is when you pop the earplugs. That's it. Otherwise, they have to stay in the stirrups. And that's the way we have enforced it in the last 6, 8, 10 months in Ohio, and that's the way we will continue to enforce it because we think it's a disadvantage to the betting public. And as I said earlier, maybe we should designate this guy kicks, put a K next to it. But it violates the rules and it's not fair, in my humble opinion.
Mr. Kimmelman? Mike Kimmelman.
As far as the rules that exist, I think it's pretty simple that if we don't think it's a good rule, you change the rule. But the rules in existence, then yeah, everybody should abide by the rule that exists where it's enforced in that way. I don't think that's really that complicated. If, as John says, the best drivers or the collection of the best drivers in our business think that we could do that differently, then we need to change the rule, not change the punishment for the existing rule. And as far as the USTA membership, I do think it's a little different to people in this room that have skin in the game. And when we talk about if we blackball or we don't allow somebody in our membership and that sends up a red flag for the commission to take a look at something, I'm all in favor for that. Because very often the commission guys, they don't have skin in the game. And if we screw up the game, I got to go do something else for a living. So I have no problem if somebody we've deemed is questionable or undesirable, let's put the red flags up. And if the states want to give them a license like they already do, that's their business. But we should stand up for our business or we'll be out of business. So I don't think it's wrong the way it is. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask for one last time because somebody said we should try and get our picture done before 3 o'clock.
Mark's getting nervous already.
Mark's getting nervous. No. All right, any last? All right, well, I appreciate everyone's comments, the interaction, and we will adjourn this afternoon, but we will take a picture now in Easton B.
We actually will go to the Facebook fan zone community. This will take us to Twitter. This will take us to Google+, Vimeo, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram. And within these communities, yes?
John Gallagher from Canada has a question.
John, yes.
Sorry, just, are all those widgets, are those all moderated?
These are actually, are each one of these widgets? No, well, they are widgets that actually go into the various properties, and then we built communities within each of those different properties.
Are you controlling which content goes up there?
Yeah, we can actually, absolutely. Yeah, we can moderate this stuff. Now, recognize, in the world of kind of real-time listening, et cetera, people are talking. Is it possible that people are going to put something up there we don't necessarily like? Yeah, I mean, but we have to accept that. That's the authenticity of conversation. When fans are kind of talking to each other with other fans, they tend not to use the nicest language sometimes. But this is we moderate for that stuff, but we also want to be a little loose in terms of letting it feel real and authentic. So we can go through to all of these as well. Now you can also go further and scroll down here, and you can join the ambassador program, which I'm going to have my assistant here, Chris Tully, to walk you through a little bit. Under the promotions, let me show you one other thing here. The top moments in harness racing is, I don't know, have anybody, how many people have submitted an entry here? So we have a couple. So let me tell you a little bit about this promotion in particular and how you can get involved. The top 100 moments in harness racing was an initiative that I mentioned yesterday. It was a partnership between the museum, the Hamiltonian Society, the USTA, and the Harness Riders Association. So this is the opportunity for everyone to, what we really want to get to are the stories that make our sport unique and special. And so there are multiple different categories, most that you would expect, but we actually have a category called Heart. And these are the stories that are very special to individuals and people about what's special about the sport to them. And what we know we have as an asset is that we have a great history, and folks are sitting around the country and with these photos and these stories in their attics and others, and we want to uncover that. I mentioned yesterday, we actually have done some work with the Smithsonian on the Showtime. There's a Smithsonian channel which is run by Showtime, and they have some of you may have seen, it's called America's Treasures. And there's this idea of folks finding these things in their own homes that tell a story about America. And it was because the Smithsonian didn't want to be this kind of cold institution up here. It wanted to be America's institution. What we're doing is very analogous to that. And I think it's not only a breakthrough for the museum in harness racing, this ability to tell these digital stories and capture these things digitally, but I think it's a story that actually transcends harness racing. And I'm really excited about the partnership here as well. We have quite a few entries right now, and they're continuing to scale. So let me just see if we can take a look at this real quickly. And this goes right into Facebook. So beneath this, there's a promotions platform that works across all these different platforms that are part of the fan zone, so that we can do ongoing promotions on it continuously. We can do photo contests, video contests, etc. as well. And you can see some of the votes that have come up, or some of the entries already. We can see Pompano Park, so this is a great place where people are starting to have conversations among and between each other and celebrating our rich history. So, we then go back to the fan zone, and we're going to go right over to the ambassador program. Okay. So, we are within the fan zone. There's a place you can see, and it says that join the ambassadors. Now, what are the ambassadors? The ambassadors are you all, or I'd like to have you all. These are folks who love the sport, who actually are active in social media, and they are invited to upload their own pictures, their own stories, their own videos, so that other ambassadors can help spread the word. And we are actually able to see who's being most successful doing this. This is actually a real-time leaderboard. And we see Mr. Tully, who's going to take this from me in a minute, is the leader. We want to do this at scale. We have about 30 ambassadors right now, and when we're working together collectively by sharing content, sharing stories, and the other ambassadors engage in this and share it as well, we start to make an impact. Major League Baseball has something called the Fan Cave, which is an ambassador program just like this as well. So this is going to scale over time. It's nice to see Emily Gaskin over here. And so you can see some of the folks that you might recognize already. And Chris, if you want to take a couple of minutes and show some folks how effectively you've been doing this.
Well, thank you, Rob. You're too kind. When the Ambassador Network first launched, I was very excited to be part of it. And, working with Jane and Rob, to increase not only the engagement of people in harness racing, but also so that, I'm a firm believer that harness racing has a lot more positive stories out there than sometimes that we are able to capture. So for me, I'm an advocate of ensuring that these positive stories get out there. And so for me, trying to get to the page where I can show you some of what I've posted over the last, and people who are on Facebook, they probably have seen this already, but, you know, every day I try to find some interesting story about harness racing that, you know, maybe from last year, maybe from last decade. This year, David Miller's going into the Hall of Fame, so most recently I posted a picture of him with Sheepy Stinging and, you know, setting the world's mark for the fastest female ever, which, you know, seems to get a lot of play. David Miller is a very popular individual. Also, historic photos, the Dead Heat from 1989. When I was, you know, started this, I tried to also include a lot of the things that, you know, we try to champion at the museum, in that with the Roosevelt Raceway Legacy project coming up, that are appropriate for that new and exciting exhibit that's going to be opening 4th of July weekend. So there is Thor Hanover winning the Messenger. So I think that, you know, over time, the ambassadors, as they become more engaged and as more individuals in harness racing start posting some of their own particular pictures, moments, and what have you, the platform is going to take off. Because we talk about talking to ourselves all the time, but I am not aware of any other way that the people who are passionate about harness racing are going to reach out to people who are early in the sport. Because, you know, short of television and radio and newspaper, people are engaging on social media every day. And if people who are involved in harness racing are talking to their non-horse racing friends, hopefully we're going to be able to convert some of those people into harness racing fans. So a lot of this I start out from my own personal Facebook page, but then I also have some posts for the museum, some posts for the harness riders. We have, you know, one of the things that I think is important too is that, you know, video has become, Facebook recognizes the importance of it. So now if you hover over a video piece, you're going to notice that it starts automatically. And I think as we get further into social media, the tracks are going to have to take a closer look about how, and also Trackmaster, how they release the videos and make them available, because people want to see them. And I think that's crucial in getting more people involved in the everyday racing, not just the big races, but being able to not have to jump through hoops to look at certain videos of certain tracks. I had the opportunity to go to Dayton the other day with Mark Lowy and Janet Terhune, and you know, posted this picture of the new track. And you know, this was a sneak peek that I was, you know, very grateful to get. But you know, these are the kind of things that I think we should be sharing. You know, all our own personal experiences, as well as, you know, how things are transpiring in the industry as a whole.
Thanks, Chris. That's good. So, when Chris, he was in the platform, you could see some of his content. There's little icons up front too. All you have to do is simply click on that. It goes through the platform, goes to all your social properties, and we can actually see what the reach is, how many people we reached, how many people engage with it, etc. And he gets points for that. Now, we're doing the Tom Sawyer School of media, because when you don't have a lot of media to spend, what you do is you get people to kind of work for little rewards or little gifts and get them to do the work for you. And so in December, the leader at the end of the month was Al Schott, who got a bottle of champagne. This month it'll be it'll be something else. So we're incentivizing people through a leaderboard to kind of get them to go forth. We also have, I like to say, these brand new shiny T-shirts we have for some members of the committee that say they are the Harness Racing Ambassador shirts. So we're going to have more swag as we move forward. So between the Harness Racing Fan Zone and the Ambassador Program, we actually have two really powerful platforms to start to engage. This is actually a shot now for all the tracks. We want to have a page within the Fan Zone. This is a mock-up of what a page can look like. And so I don't know how well you can see it, but this is specific for the Meadowlands. You can see that, you know, the same kind of conversations in real time that are happening in Twitter, Meadowlands fans. We hope to have one for Yonkers, we hope to have one for the Poconos, we hope to have one for everybody. So we need to make sure that you guys are visible within the real estate. Then we had talked about social promotions. This is a great way to start to break out to new audiences. So the 100 Top Moments in Harness Racing is about energizing our base. And we're starting to do these weekly and monthly other promotions that will be rolling out over time. I'm taking you through this. I do want to show you just the 100 top moments already. It's already building momentum. This is March 17th when it started. And you can see this is the amount of engagement and traffic that it's already getting. So early on, but it's actually making some nice progress. I mentioned yesterday something. So, we're energizing our base. We have our ambassadors. We have a fan zone that we can send people to who are new to the sport, and you saw the videos yesterday, and hopefully they'll walk away and say, hey, this is kind of an interesting sport. Maybe I'll look a little bit more into it. The $1 million challenge is still in development, but we hope to have it finalized soon. So what you have to do here is actually choose. Mr. Leary and the USTA team helped us pick 30 races, Grand Circuit races. And again, I'd like to say, what a great partnerships we're seeing between, with the 100 Moments, it's the Harness Riders, the Hamiltonian Society, and the museum, etc. And here we have a partnership with the Grand Circuit. It's great to see everyone coming together and unifying. So these are 30 races. They were picked so they cover most tracks. So we have Poconos, and we have the Meadows, and we have Mohawk, and we have Northfield, Saratoga, etc. And as a fan, if you can choose 30 of the winners, then you'll be awarded $1 million with a 40-year annuity. We bought insurance for this because the odds of doing this are obviously quite difficult. We're hoping to also get like a 25 out of 30 because once a person moves, we want people to tune in for each race. But if somebody loses the first race, will they tune in for the rest of it? But they would not give us insurance for that because we have too many favorites winning the race. But this is modeled a little bit on the $1 billion NCAA bracket, which you probably all saw with Quicken Loans.